Okay, so we're doing chapter 9, problem 67 here. So we have a uniform thin wire and it's bent into a semicircle of radius r. We want to determine its center of mass with respect to an origin at the center of the full circle. My bad there. So here we have the center of the circle at our origin, our coordinate system. And immediately we should see that by symmetry we know the center of mass in the x position is 0. So, but we know that we're going to have to figure out what it is for the y, and that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So let's go ahead and think of this in polar coordinates where x and y is given as r cos theta, r sine theta. Now the equation for the center of mass is going to be for the y component as 1 over the total mass times the integral of y dm. Okay, so we got to figure out what this dm component is. So if we take the total mass and chop this up to a small little chunk dm, how much is going to be? Well, it's uniform in length, right? So if the length of that wire is dl, then dm is going to be the total divided by the length of that chunk, which would be pi times radius times dl. Okay. So now, what is the chunk of dl? Well, if we chunk it, or if we put it up in this way, then the arc length of that little chunk, dl, is given by theta dr. That was backwards, sorry. This is r times d theta, with d theta being the chunk, or the chunk of angle for that little tiny wedge of our semicircle. So now we can substitute things in. So we have our center of mass here as 1 over big M integral y, but we're going to do polar coordinates, so that becomes r sine theta. R sine theta. Oops. And now we replace with what dm is, and that's big M over pi r r d theta. So these r's are going to cancel, these m's are going to cancel, and what we're left with is r over pi integral from 0 to pi sine theta d theta. Okay, well this integral is easy. We can just do that and see that this comes out to being 2r over pi. And that's our y center of mass. So our total center of mass is just given as y center of mass, or x center of mass, y center of mass. So this is 0 and 2r over pi.